If you're into cozy games, chances are you've seen a trailer for Collector's Cove. This is a cozy farming adventure on the open sea, where you sail from island to island, grow crops on the deck of your ship, and collect rare fish and resources while working towards the title of Named Collector. A floating farm, a cute companion, peaceful ocean vibes. That all sounds pretty charming on paper, right? Well, after spending about 4 hours with the game, I realized something interesting. Collector's Cove checks a lot of cozy boxes, but it also feels surprisingly empty. And I'm pretty sure that's not on accident. Today, I'm breaking down my first impressions after the first 7 in-game days, plus a little extra time just to make sure I wasn't stuck in a tutorial loop. This game does one thing very intentionally, and whether you enjoy it will depend entirely on the kind of cozy gamer you are. At its core, Collector's Cove is a very simple concept. You live on a small boat and slowly transform the deck into a floating farm. From there, you sail to nearby islands where you can forage for crops, gather materials, and fish. Those resources help you craft new items, upgrade your tools, and expand your floating home. The long-term goal is to become a named collector, which basically means discovering rare items and documenting them in your compendium. And honestly, that's pretty much the whole premise. This game is really light on the story. There aren't any villagers to meet or seaside towns to explore. There aren't branching quest lines guiding you forward. Instead, the entire experience revolves around one core loop. You sail, gather resources, return to your boat, craft new items, tend your garden, and then you sail somewhere else and do it again. For some players, that simplicity is going to feel relaxing. But for others, it might feel like the game is missing something. Before you even set sail, the game lets you create your character. And I'll be honest, there are some customization options here that I really like. You can tweak your look, adjust a few details, and start building a character that really feels like you. But one thing stood out to me right away, and that was that the hairstyle options are pretty limited. Right now, there are only 3 Afro-textured hairstyles available, which feels like a missed opportunity, especially in a cozy game where personalization is a big part of the game experience. The interesting thing, though, is that the menu actually shows empty slots, which makes it look like the developers are planning to expand the options later. So while the current selection feels a little thin, it does seem like something that could improve in future updates. And I'd love to see them lean further into the customization, because when a game invites you to build a little life on the ocean, having more ways to make your character feel like you goes a long way. One of the cutest parts of Collector's Cove is your companion. You travel with a gigantic dinosaur buddy who follows you around as you explore islands and carries your floating fortress. And yes, you can customize them. They're adorable, very expressive, and honestly, they bring a lot of personality to an otherwise quiet world. In addition to customizing your companion, you also customize your ship over time. Your boat slowly evolves into a floating home as you craft furniture and expand your farming space. And that part of the game is genuinely satisfying. That sense of personalization is definitely nice, but it also highlights one of the game's biggest limitations. Your dinosaur companion is basically the only relationship you will build in the game. There are no island-dwelling NPCs to meet, there's no real social interactions. Your uncles serve as a mini guide and then later as a merchant, but he's really just one guy in multiple hats. For 95% of the game, it's just you and your companion hopping from island to island. And that format shapes the entire in-game experience. So let's talk about the gameplay loop, because this is where the game will either click with you or lose you pretty quickly. Collector's Cove includes most of the mechanics you'd expect from a cozy game. You can forage materials on islands, you can farm crops on your boat, you fish in the surrounding waters, and then you craft items using the materials you collect. The music is calm and relaxing, and the art style leans fully into that cozy aesthetic. On paper, it checks all the right boxes. But the pacing is very slow. Progression takes time and inventory space is limited early on. So you'll often find yourself running back and forth between islands, merchants, and your boat just to manage your resources. After a few in-game days, something started to stand out to me. The loop never really evolves, and it can start to feel repetitive pretty quickly. You're mostly repeating the same mine, fish, chop, explore cycle. And for me, the rewards didn't always feel strong enough to keep that loop exciting. Overall, the UI in Collector's Cove is pretty simple to navigate. The menus are clean, crafting is straightforward, and it doesn't take long to understand where everything lives. So from a design standpoint, it's definitely approachable, especially for newer players. One thing I really appreciated is that the PC version includes full controller support, but there were a few moments where the controls felt a little clunky. One of the biggest examples of this was when I was tending to crops. Sometimes it was hard to tell which plant was actually selected, and that led to a frustrating problem where I'd try to water or fertilize one plant and accidentally use that item on another. Resources like water and fertilizer are already pretty limited, especially early in the game, so wasting them by accident can be pretty annoying. This feels like something that could be improved with clearer visual indicators, maybe a stronger highlight on the selected plant, or a more obvious cursor. There is technically a story in this game, but it mostly comes through the mail system. Every so often, you'll receive mail from your uncle or your parents explaining mechanics or giving advice. These letters are kind of long, but they are important to read because they explain certain systems in the game. They're also pretty much the only way the game communicates with you after the tutorial. After that point, our uncle becomes all business, and there are no other characters for you to interact with face to face. If you're someone who enjoys cozy games for the relationships and storytelling, this might be a bit disappointing. To be fair, the developers have stated that they plan to expand the story in the future, but right now, the experience is very solitary, and that seems to be a deliberate design choice. I actually played the demo for Collector's Cove last year, and my biggest takeaway at the time was that the game felt pretty empty. Since that was an early build, I decided to revisit it with the expectation that a lot may have changed. Like I said earlier, I played through the first 7 in-game days, which is what this review is largely based on. But I also kept playing for about 4.5 hours total, which equals out to roughly 2.5 in-game weeks, just to make sure the game wasn't hiding all the interesting stuff after the tutorial. The overall experience sadly still felt very similar to what I remembered from the demo. The developers have mentioned plans to add things like story improvements, more quest lines, new climates, and additional boat upgrades. But right now, the minimum gameplay loop seems very intentional. This is meant to be a slow, solitary collecting game, and that's either going to feel relaxing or a little underwhelming, depending on what you're looking for. Collector's Cove launches March 12, 2026. It will be available on PC, PlayStation 5, and Nintendo Switch. The price point is $19.99, and the main experience is estimated to take around 25 to 30 hours, with extra time if you're trying to collect everything. Also worth noting, if you play the demo, your progress does carry over into the full release, which is always a nice bonus. But here's the big question. When you look at other cozy games in this same price range, how does Collector's Cove stack up? If you are a fan of cozy collecting games, you might naturally compare this title to something like Animal Crossing, New Horizons, or Cozy Grove. But those games succeed largely because of their characters and world building. They give you neighbors to meet, relationships to build, and small narrative threads that keep pulling you back into the game. Collector's Cove strips most of that away, so the experience becomes entirely about collecting and completionism. And when I compare it to other cozy games at a similar price point, it's a tough sell for me. For example, Cozy Grove is around $15 and offers a much stronger narrative experience. And if you want cozy farming with deep characters and storylines, Wildflowers is honestly one of the best in the genre. Those games give players more reasons to come back day after day. I don't feel that with Collector's Cove. That said, I do think there's a specific audience for this game. If you're brand new to cozy games, or if you're looking for something extremely low stress and relaxing, the endless collecting loop might actually be perfect for you. There's no combat, no conflict, and no social systems to navigate. Just sailing around, exploring islands, and bonding with your companion as you slowly expand your floating farm. But if you're someone who plays cozy games for story or character relationships, you might find yourself wanting more depth. Collector's Cove has a really cute premise. A floating farm, a dinosaur companion, exploring peaceful islands across the open seas. That was plenty enough to get me interested. But after spending time with the game, I found myself wishing for more reasons to keep sailing around beyond just completionism. Right now, the experience feels very simple, and for some players, maybe a little too simple. Still, if you're looking for a quiet collecting game with minimal pressure, Collector's Cove might be worth checking out. Just go in knowing exactly what kind of journey you're signing up for. If you've been keeping an eye on Collector's Cove, let me know what you think about it so far. And if you're looking for more cozy game reviews and first impressions, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next one. Until then, I'll see you on our next adventure.